webinars are made possible thanks to generous donor support. If you'd like to contribute, please visit our website, autism.org.
Our speaker today is Jennifer Knott. Jennifer is a member and presenter at the Aquatic Therapy and Rehab Institute. Jenn works with children, adults, and families with special needs to eliminate as many barriers as possible by designing inclusive, goal-driven, individualized, and meaningful recreation programs. She currently serves as the Executive Director of Rec2Connct, located in Wadsworth, Ohio. These webinars are made possible thanks to generous donor support. If you'd like to contribute, please visit our website at autism.org. And now I will turn this over to Jennifer Knott.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to present on an area that I'm very passionate about. Our topic for today is aquatic therapy programming for individuals with autism. And as said, I am the founder and executive director at Rec2Connct. So Rec2Connct started about 14 years ago. Here's a little bit more about myself. I specialize in recreation therapy, aquatic therapy, and community-based programming. Prior experiences listed here. So I've kind of always positioned myself in and around the water. My first experience working in aquatic therapy was as a volunteer in college at Hattie Larlam, which is a group home for individuals with severe to profound disabilities. And we did aquatic therapy under the supervision of a physical therapist at that time. Watching the magic of the water was what got me from day one. Seeing individuals who had varying abilities on land get into the water and their faces light up and their behavior change and their mood change and their physical functioning change was all that I needed to see to know that that was where my life's work needed to be dedicated from there. So, you know, kind of everything I did after that, tried to work in the water. I worked as a behavior classroom aide at the Center for Autism at the Cleveland Clinic, as well as in-home, and then also as a recreation therapist at the Children's Hospital for Rehab at the clinic, also in aquatic therapy and then inpatient therapy. You know, working in schools and rehab facilities, I saw a lot of amazing work that we were doing during the day, be it in the classroom setting, in the inpatient setting. But when we were sending people home at night, I found that there was not a lot of opportunity for individuals with autism, with physical disabilities, you know, and with just varying needs to still engage in aquatic therapy programming. So that is kind of what led me to start Rec2Connct, was wanting to create that opportunity for individuals in the community to access ongoing aquatic therapy that they could continue to work on their goals, their skills, find a recreation opportunity that they enjoyed and wanted to be a part of for the lifelong. And so that just kind of shows a little bit more about Rec2Connect. We are meant to be an extension of OT and PT and inpatient services so that we can help provide those same goals and opportunities in the community as well. And then we work out of rec centers, adult day programs, and schools currently. So a little bit more about recreation therapy. I know that it's one of the therapies that's not the, you know, kind of the most well-known, but it is meant to be a lifelong therapy that can be provided. So it, according to ATRA, which is one of our organizations that oversee us nationally, it's a systemic process that utilizes recreation and other activity-based interventions to address the needs of individuals with illnesses or disabling conditions as a means to psychological and physical health, recovery, and well-being. Within our organization, as well as recreation therapists across the world, they're assessing, designing, and implementing and documenting on individuals' progress weekly. We do provide highly individualized programs and use that as our treatment method as recreation. So it could be aquatics that is our treatment method. It could be basketball. It could be, you know, physical fitness programs or group-based programs that we're providing as our treatment method, but overall our goals are similar to physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy, where we're kind of working on that long-term sustainability of skills and progress of skills over time. And one thing, especially at Rec2Connct, that we work to do is eliminate barriers to recreation participation. So what is it that we can do to help people get more involved and to eliminate some of those barriers that you may experience at a rec center if you were just going to enroll in swim lessons? Our goal, especially at Rec2Connect, and I know recreation therapy in general, is how can we make that accessible and what can we do to be helpful? And then all of the skills that we're working on are intended to be carried over into other aspects of the participant's life. So we may be working on some range of motion goals and strengthening goals that not only are for the water, also though to be utilized in, ADLs and a variety of other physical opportunities that individuals are participating in weekly. So a little bit more about aquatic therapy in general. This quote comes from the Aquatic Therapy and Rehab Institute. Aquatic therapy is something that you cannot necessarily go to school to become an aquatic therapist. It is something that you either are already a therapist in another realm, if it's physical therapy, occupational, recreation therapy, and then you go on to get additional certifications or take additional coursework in aquatic therapy. And so one of those opportunities and organizations that you can do that through is ATRI. And the definition of aquatic therapy is just the use of water in specifically designed activities by qualified personnel to aid in the restoration, extension, maintenance, and quality of function for persons with acute, transient, or chronic disabilities, syndromes, or diseases. So it's pretty broad. It definitely can be provided by a variety of professionals and also for a variety of individuals and individual needs. It is goal driven, so we are working to address the specific needs of the individuals that we're working with, and we are using the water to address that skill. That can also be transferred to land. So a great example of that is, if you're working on gait training, you obviously are working on that on land. You get someone in the water and they are not weight bearing as much. Typically it's 90% of their body weight. They are not weight bearing once they're submerged to their shoulders. And so then you can work on some of those gait opportunities in the water as well. Ultimate goal is that you get them walking on land, but it's something that you can use the water as a medium for that, and to make it easier for the individuals to start gaining those skills. It can be combined with teaching swim skills. So at Rec2Connect, that is what we do. We provide both working on therapeutic goals as well as working on swim skills at the same time. And then it also, just a couple benefits, it helps decrease reaction time. So the water kind of slows everything down, which is ideal for the populations that we serve. Being able to allow for additional time for falling or for processing is imperative to success in the water. And then it also provides a calming environment. The reasons for that and why that occurs are because of these three things here. The properties just naturally of the water provide that. So I always say that I work at an advantage by working in the water. I don't have to do anything to have the benefits of the water work with me and for the individual that we're working with. And it's because of buoyancy, resistance, and hydrostatic pressure. So the just kind of brief overview with this. Buoyancy is the upward thrust of the water, and it is working against gravity. So that is what makes people float. That is what allows people to weight bear less of their body weight once they're in the water, and therefore making things a lot easier for individuals when they're in the water for different skills. Second one is resistance. So working with is this resistance, you're working against that in every plane with every movement that you are working in the water. I kind of always relate that to working on land. If you kind of wave your hand back and forth on land, maybe you feel a little bit of the wind, but you're not really feeling things, though, anything going in between your fingers, in between your arm, up and down and surrounding your arm. Where in the water, you are feeling that with every movement that you make. If you close your fingers, it's going to feel different than if you open your fingers. So resistance is always working in our favor to provide that additional sensory stimulation and feedback. And then also hydrostatic pressure. And hydrostatic pressure is just that equally on all parts of the body that are submerged, you are getting that feedback and that, I always kind of call it a big hug. The water is always giving you a hug in the water. So it's helping with focus. It's helping to center the individual that's in the water as well. And again, these are things that just by getting in the pool, that is what you're feeling right as soon as you get in. That's not an environment that I have to work to create, where on land I would have to work to create those sensory inputs and opportunities. So kind of getting into how this relates to individuals with autism specifically. Individuals with autism, as many know, are often drawn to the water and lack the safety awareness and skill set to be successful without a multifaceted and individualized approach. And this is what, like I said, Rec2Connct really works hard to help break down the barriers to access aquatic programming, to provide the swim safety skills and awareness to be successful in the water, and use many different ways to approach that. So just kind of going into some research that was found, there definitely is a need for swim skills at a young age. There was a research article that is referenced here that looked at individuals with autism and the mobility rate of individuals with autism. And they were finding that individuals with autism, children specifically, were 160 times as likely to die from drowning as a general pediatric population. And a lot of this can be attributed to the fact that individuals with autism have a tendency to wander and are also drawn to water when they do. Which is, as I was reading it, being someone that already works in this field was also, it shocked me to see that it was that high. I know that it is something that is what we work on and what we work against daily, and what I think should be at the forefront as we go forward from a pediatric perspective, and where we're recommending therapies for children with autism as we go forward. And this was, kind of outlined here by what Dr. Lee had said, that typically once a child is diagnosed with autism, pediatricians usually are suggesting behavioral therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, all things that are imperative as well from the beginning of diagnosis, but that swimming should be an imperative survival skill, and aquatic therapy is something that should be recommended along with that as well. And I just added in here too, the combination of aquatic therapy at a young age, also with safety precautions in place within the home, can assist in prevention of drowning. And some of those safety precautions would be making sure that there's locks on all the doors that are high up. So individuals, if they have a tendency to wander, that they can be locked. If there is a pool, making sure that that is locked and that there's an alarm, either within the house or outside of the house, that would go off. I know that they also make different types of bracelets and watches that can be worn by the individual, so that if they do leave or become submerged in water, that it will alarm and alert the parent or caretaker at that time. So there's a lot of things, not only just with providing aquatic therapy and swimming at a young age, also with some of those other opportunities as well to keep children safe. I think there's also, a need for physical activity across the lifespan. Often individuals with autism are not engaging in the same amount of physical activity as their peers. A lot of that I think is based on the motivation of the individual. If it is group sports, I know that can be difficult for individuals with autism to be successful in that. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of socialization that's required. And as kids get older, it becomes more and more competitive, to where it's not just playing for the game anymore, it's more playing to win, and coaches are out to win, and it then limits the opportunities that people have to engage in those activities. There was a study done that stated that difficulties in movement skills can have long-term effects on emotional, social, and behavioral development. And I think that plays into just even thinking of all of us, the less that I move my body on a daily basis, the harder it is sometimes to, be motivated to do other things, or to stay fit, or to keep my emotions in check. So exercise is something that's important to me, even if it's just getting out and taking a walk. And so I think what we're working against a lot of times as recreation therapy professionals and providing this for individuals with autism is trying to find ways that are motivating and exciting, that individuals want to participate in, that can then be participated in over the lifespan. When I started Rec2Connct, the individual that I started with in 2006 is still with us today, swimming with us multiple times a week in multiple activities. So that opportunity is still there because he found his recreation spot. He found what he loved. And it may not be swimming. There's many other opportunities, but I think from a physical fitness standpoint and a physical activity standpoint, really finding what that motivation is and then utilizing that as, how we keep individuals engaged over the lifespan. I think also just, being able to do that with others. Swimming can be an individual sport and activity. It's something you can do alone. It is a great way to block everything else out. I know when I swim, I count. When just over and over again, I count my arm strokes. And it really gets everything out of my brain and lets me just focus on my body and what I'm doing. But then I also can do it with my family. I can take my kids to the pool and swim with them. I can do it with my parents and my friends. So can be an individual opportunity, but it also can be something that you do with others too. So just kind of looking at barriers to community aquatic programming, this was something that, even still we hear from families when they're trying to find programs in our area. We really are one of the only ones, even 14 years later, that are providing specialized aquatic therapy and adapted aquatics programming. So I do think that is a barrier to participation in aquatic therapy, is finding qualified individuals that can address all of these needs that are listed here. Can they have a good understanding of the motor deficits that the individuals are facing? Do they understand the brain and body connection and how to help individuals that are struggling with that? Can they connect motor planning skills and help individuals practice with repetition that over and over, not just in the swimming sense? Can they also assist with balance? I know a lot of aquatic just swim lessons that are happening are group lessons. If you have an individual with autism that struggles with balance on land and get them in the water, it can be that much more difficult sometimes, especially if they're falling off balance. They're going to go underwater if they fall off balance, and they need to have those eyes on them one-on-one to make sure that they're staying safe in the water. A lot of what we hear too about programming barriers is just like I said before, finding qualified instructors. Many people that come to us have already tried the YMCA or other rec center programs, if they've gone to their local rec center, or other programs that are out there that just were not able to assist with the needs of the individuals that they were servicing with autism and other disabilities. Also, funding is another part of it. What we do at times can be costly because it does require one-to-one supervision. We provide assessments, goals weekly, and data weekly, so that can be costly. So finding assistance for funding. A lot of times county programs, there's county funding that people can access if that's in your area. Grants that are out there as well to utilize for this is something that can be helpful. And then also the age. I know that's something that we've heard from we work with kids and adults. So people often struggle to find programs that are for teens and adults because swim lessons typically are happening at a younger age. So finding, individuals that are qualified that can assist with any age as well. And then also any needs, any behavioral needs or any sensory needs, knowing how to assist with that in the water. If it's through the use of visual schedules, if it's through the use of different systems that the individual may be using on land, being able to also carry those over in the water too. So here's some indications for aquatic therapy, just why do we use it and what can be done in the water. So we typically see a lot of individuals that have hyperactivity, have a lot of sensory seeking behaviors or sensory deficits. They have aversion to the water, motor deficits, hypertonia, body awareness, behavioral regulation needs, balance needs, safety needs, and they're looking for something for lifelong leisure development. These are all things that can be addressed in the water. And like I said, you're kind of already working at an advantage with the sensory environment that you're working in. So Rec2Connect's approach is individualized. I know this was said in my bio. So obviously all that we do is geared to this. We want to meet participants where they're at and provide programming that is best for them individually. So if the individual is loving going underwater and not, engaging in activities above the water, how can we adapt that to do underwater activities to work on therapeutic goals? There are ways to do it. It requires you going underwater a lot yourself too, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it enjoyable. And a lot of times that's what gets the buy-in to individuals into what you are doing. We make sure that everything we do is goal-driven. So we assess the needs and set goals for those individuals based on the assessment that we use. And then we also want to make sure that we're working on lifelong skills. So, we're working on skills that are introduced in a preferred setting like the water to then carry over to the other aspects of their life. If it's crossing midline, bilateral coordination of the upper extremities, using their arms and legs at the same time, increasing core strength. There's a variety of skills that we are working on in the water that they're already in the water, they're already having fun, but then we see the carryover on land as well. So this just kind of goes into a little bit about the process that we utilize. We assess our individuals to start. The assessment that we use is called the Comprehensive Evaluation in Recreation Therapy. It's the physical portion of that assessment. And we do that in the water. We do complete that assessment in the water, as well as a swim level evaluation that we've created our own swim levels that work from a basic swim safety standpoint all the way up to teaching swim strokes and swim team and things like that as they go forward. So this is where we start and what really guides us in determining what program is going to be the best. We provide aquatic therapy, which works on those therapeutic goals as well as swimming goals, but then we also provide adapted aquatics programming that primarily just focuses on swimming skills. And the number score that we get from this assessment is what determines which program is going to be the best fit for our individuals. And then we reassess yearly or as needed if we see that the individual is making a lot of progress very quickly to then move them on in their goals and also in the programs as well. We then plan our sessions on a weekly basis based on what their interests are and their goals are. We implement that in either a one-on-one or group setting, and then we document daily on the progress as we go forward. So that kind of helps guide us in each session weekly. And so just kind of going a little bit further in depth of what kind of skills can you work on in an aquatic therapy session that is other than just swimming skills. And with this, I got creative with my slide, and it's endless as far as what you can provide in the water. You can work on gait, you can work on core strength, crossing midline, sensory regulation, communication, range of motion, balance, body awareness, following directions, using arms and legs at the same time, variety of gross motor skills. Developmentally that, may be more difficult to teach on land, and the motivation may not be there to practice, jumping and jumping jacks and kicking and throwing and things like that. Where in the water, you're having fun doing it. It's in an environment where you're getting feedback to your body the entire time. Upper extremity strengthening, reciprocal use of your upper extremities, and then lower extremity strengthening. And like I said, this is not even encompassing all of the things, just, that's all that I could fit on this slide was this many. So the possibilities are definitely endless. And so kind of going forward, I included different activities that we utilize in the water. We actually created an activity notebook for each of these goals that we work on. And then we have lists and lists and lists of what type of activities can be done in the water to address these goals. Because the water is very different than working on land, you really have to think about the physics of what it is that you're doing and how you're presenting these activities to make sure that you're utilizing them correctly and targeting the correct parts of the body with it. So here's just a couple picture examples of core strengthening. We have an individual here. This is like a 2-foot depth water. We have these floating, I'm sure everybody's seen them. They're like the Big Joe floats that are great to just lounge around on, but they are wonderful for a lot of different core activities. If it's pushing them through the water, putting things on, lifting things up off the ground like a medicine ball and putting it on top of it, pushing hard on it and submerging it. Submersion is one that we really go to a lot when it comes to core strengthening. And the great part about this is it's really hard to activate your core. Even as an adult, that's a hard thing to do. I know everybody's probably familiar with belly button to the spine and, really try to hone in on that, but that's tough. And that's tough for somebody who doesn't have the core muscles to do that. And also then the body awareness to execute that directive as well. So a lot of times in the water, pushing anything under the water automatically is going to assist in core strengthening and core activation without the individual even having to think about it. Same with this one, him pushing that through the water. He's not having to think about belly button to spine. He's pushing it and automatically engaging his core by doing so. Another great one is adding fins. We use flippers a lot in our programs, obviously for kicking and for swim skill development, but we also use them for core strengthening. So that as they're kicking, that wide frame of reference is really providing that much more feedback to the individual to activate their core and activate the correct muscles. Another goal that we work on and some different activities and ideas for that are just motor skills, variety of motor skills and strength. So we do a lot with sponges, utilizing for fine motor control, squeezing sponges, catching sponges, throwing sponges, all are really great for fine motor strength and skills. Also, even for crossing midline, if he starts putting his sponge in her cup and she puts hers in his, you kind of can start building off of all of those opportunities, and you're in the water, so you're splashing, you're getting that feedback and fun, so it doesn't feel like just a repetitious type of activity that maybe on land might be a little more challenging to get engagement from the individual that you're working with. Another one is this one here. Obviously there's so many pool games that you see that are for outdoor pools or any pools, but having this where he actually was jumping off the side to then put them on here. So not only were we working on jumping, but also eye-hand coordination too. And the individual here was working on the same skill, but from the water. She was jumping up out of the water and then placing it on the dolphin's nose. Medicine balls are our best friend in the water. They create splash, they create, some of them sink, some of them float. So, you can provide a lot of different opportunities. The ones that sink, people can then go underwater and grab them and bring them back up to the top. And all of that is engaging your core. It's engaging your arms. It's engaging, your eye-hand coordination. This one, we're also working on range of motion by reaching over her head and throwing. That's a 10-pound medicine ball that she has. So, you can also increase the amount of weight that you're utilizing with that as well. Using arms and legs at the same time. This is probably one of my favorite ones to do, or just favorite skills to work on in the water. On land, this can be a tough one to prompt. If you're trying to prompt, someone to do a jumping jack or somebody to push a scooter on land, that you're working, gravity is not on your side with this. Where in the water, it definitely is working with you. So just a couple examples. This one, we're pushing the scooter up the hill. We have a medicine ball on top to make it even heavier. He's actually wearing a wetsuit as well, so providing even more sensory feedback and input for him. We use a company called Warm Bellies that for little ones has been a great wetsuit to utilize because you can grow with them. It has Velcro straps that you can pull up over them. But being able to do this in the water with all of that feedback is great. And he's going uphill in that one. This video here, we're working on a jumping jack type of skill. So using arms and legs at the same time. We have floats on his arms and floats on his legs. So it's helping keep him at the top of the water. It's making it fun. We are also in the current of a lazy river. So the lazy river current is like blowing towards him, giving him even more feedback as he's moving. So in the water, there's just so many opportunities for a variety of skills and sensory opportunities that can be utilized that on land would be a lot harder to recreate. All right. Like I said, that is one of my favorite activities because I think the possibilities are endless with that as far as, what you're able to do in the water. And that leads us into sensory. I touched on that previously with the Warm Bellies wetsuit, but here's just a couple other examples of what we can utilize in the water and just how you can be creative as well. This individual here is floating on one of our spring floats. Again, this is meant for, outdoor pool, relaxing, laying in it. But we use this, it's called a spring float. You can get them at Target or, kind of anywhere. And it has a mesh on the inside. So it provides the individual the ability to be in the water, but be supported in the water. We have a lot of people that once they get in the water, they don't necessarily enjoy like how free it feels, especially if you're starting to float. That can be a scary, opportunity for them and feeling for them, especially if they've not done it before. So, utilizing the spring float, we do a lot of basic swimming skills, especially when kids first start with us, and even adults. This is an adult size one. So they can lay on their back, they can lay on their stomach, they can flip from their belly to their back. This individual, if you can see down here, there is a weight at the bottom of the pool. We were originally going to use this to put on his wrists, and we were going to work on some upper body strengthening by splashing with the weights and doing some catching with the weights on our wrists. He was not interested in wearing the equipment, which happens often, but instead got a huge kick out of just throwing them in the water. And so our therapist was like, hey, this is the same goal, same thing. Let's roll with this. And so that is what this activity became, was him throwing them in the water, her getting them, giving it back to him, and him throwing it again. So, that sometimes most times kids and adults will show us what they're seeking in the moment and how we can then, frame what our goals are and what our activities are around that. Another piece of equipment that we use often to provide additional sensory input and also to help with individuals that don't like getting their ears in the water. This is called an ear bandit that is around his ear. It's a neoprene wrap that also has Velcro. So it wraps around the ear and then Velcros either in the front or the back, wherever it's most comfortable. And it allows not as much water to come into the ear when they're placing their face in the water, or if they're floating on their back, placing their head in the water. So we keep those on hand just for any swimmer that starts with us that, may find it too much to have the water in their ears, but you put something like that on, and all of a sudden they're going underwater. They're, exploring a little bit more in the water with that. And then we also use a lot of mats for sensory input, for swimming skills teaching. This one we're working on floating on our back, but it's giving them the support that they need without necessarily us having to have our hands on them either to provide that support. So, then they start gaining the independence and skill a little bit faster when you're adding something like a float. Either of these floats in picture 1 or picture 3 are great for that. You also can stand on it, you can kneel on it. There's many opportunities with both of these that provide a lot of input in the water. And a lot of times when we're designing our programs, we do try to keep sensory needs involved. And so if we need to start our session with, maybe we need to just start by floating on something like this and moving through the water, and the individual's flipping and floating around in it. Maybe we need to start by just jumping in off the side, and that's, the need at that moment. Sometimes we need to break in the middle of the swim lap just to do some of these sensory activities, and then refocus and continue our swimming. Same with our activities. We really try to incorporate as much as we can into the activity, but also provide the opportunity for breaks. If it's really easy to just go underwater. You'll see in a later video, we're doing an activity, and that is kind of where the activity goes, is right underwater. This is just another example of, the sensory stimulation that can be provided with a mat and in the water, bouncing and jumping and spinning and splashing. All of those things are providing so much to the individual. And this is actually at the beginning of her session. So she starts every session with this activity. And then after they're finished for at least, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, then they go into whatever focused activity is next. So this is just a kind of a case study that we did with one of our individuals. This was our friend Donovan. He started with Rec2Connct when he was 5. He loved the water, lacked safety awareness and the motor planning to be safe in the water, and had high sensory seeking needs in the water as well, which prohibited him a lot of times to focus. In this activity, he's wearing a cape. So this is kind of, it's just a piece of fabric that's thinner, but also clings to the body when he's in the water. It has a hole over in the middle so he can put his head through. And it just, again, gives him that much more sensory input and stimulation to complete this activity of throwing the ball in the basket. Here are some of our therapeutic goals. This is the video I was talking about where we're using the slingshot, but you can see as soon as he's done, we got to go underwater. And that was the process of that activity. We shoot the slingshot, then we go underwater. Then we do it again and go underwater. So being flexible to be able to provide that sensory need that he had in the moment. But we were also working on our upper body strengthening through that. We were working on our eye-hand coordination. Eventually, in this video, I had another snippet of the video that I didn't include in this, but she wanted him to use 2 hands with this. So then it was working on range of motion in both hands. It was using bilateral coordination. So you can incorporate so many different skills and goals into these activities that you're designing. And a lot of it is just kind of being really creative with what your goals are and what you're trying to work on. This is just a video of Donovan. This one might be a little bit grainy, so I apologize in advance because this is a pretty old video of ours. But like I said, when he first started, he just wanted to be underwater. He didn't really have the swim skills to be swimming, safely in the water. He's, going under and bouncing off the bottom. He's coming up. He's doing a couple kicks, not having his arms involved. A lot of times we see individuals that are using their arms or their legs, but not necessarily both at the same time. And that's why we tackle all of those therapeutic goals prior to swimming. And in correlation with swimming is that swimming involves their core, their upper body, their lower body, their breathing. It really is a head to toe activity. And if you are just trying to teach swimming alone, it's going to take a lot longer than trying to incorporate some other activities like the ones that you saw in the videos earlier of individuals using their arms and legs to do jumping jacks floated in the water, or riding on a scooter while holding onto a barbell in the water, or pushing, something on a scooter up a hill. All of that is starting to work those neural connections and the brain-body connection to use their arms and legs in the same time in other ways so that when they start swimming, they're able to work on that too. And this just lists some of our basic swim skills in our swim safety level 1 swimming that we work on. We definitely want to promote grasping the side of the wall and swimming to the pool wall, using bubbles when they're going underwater or holding their breath. Bubbles out of their nose is the ultimate goal for that, but starting somewhere with either bubbles out of their mouth and or holding their breath is a great way to start. Teaching the safety position. So floating on your back, that is our number 1 when we are teaching, is, transitioning from your belly to your back, being able to be in the water and then flip over so that you can take a breath. And then we start teaching more swimming skills. Then we start teaching how to kick, how to use your arms, how to then, swim other strokes. And then also how to get in and exit the water in a safe way. A lot of kids just want to jump in as soon as they get to the pool. So making sure that we're counting to 3 together before you get in the water so that we have joint attention with each other. They know that adult isn't required to get in the water, and making that, a habit and something that's required every time. And then this just shows kind of the progress over time for Donovan. So Donovan is here. He now is on our Razor Shark swim team. He is swimming backstroke. He's swimming freestyle. He's swimming breaststroke. And he is a USA swimmer that competes in USA swim meets with our team. So the possibilities are endless once you start teaching. I think a lot of times it's just getting in the water, getting things started, and finding those qualified individuals that can assist you along the way. This is Donovan after one of our swim meets with his friend that just got done swimming. And I mean, he attends probably at least 15 meets a year with us, which is awesome. And then kind of lastly, just going into those swimming skills, that whatever you're doing in the water is also working on skills that are going to transfer to land. It works on so many gross motor skills that, oftentimes kids that are playing sports or that are going to the playground and, maybe they're playing tag outside with their friends, like they're getting the opportunity to practice those gross motor skills over and over again. And at times kids with autism aren't having those same opportunities when it comes to physical activity and sport. So being in the water can provide those same skills, those same opportunities to develop their gross motor and developmental skills. This is just a picture of someone climbing out of the pool. So just looking at all that's involved. I mean, he's using both hands, pushing up with his hands to get out of the pool, lifting his leg to get out of the pool, rolling over to his side, and then turning to sit and then eventually stand. Those are a lot of steps. That's a lot of gross motor planning and motor planning that is involved in that. One skill of just climbing out of the pool. And then you add on top of that, that's a safety skill. To be able to climb out if you're in deeper water is a huge thing that we always want our swimmers to know as they're working through our program. Again, just kind of another example of what you can work on in the water, that simple swimming activities. I mean, jumping in the pool is something that kids love to do, adults love to do. When you're going to the pool in the summertime, that's something that you see people doing all the time. But it also is working on jumping. It's working on jumping off of a surface and over something. So this individual is actually, I'm holding a noodle here. So he was jumping over the noodle. Incorporating hopscotch into the pool, putting dots on the bottom of the pool floor and planning out jumping from 2 feet to 1 foot, 2 feet to 1 foot. We've tried, and we do these activities on land as well. And it can be a lot harder to facilitate that on land and to teach that on land because you're working against gravity. You're not in a fully sensory filled environment like the water, where once you get in the water and everything is slowed down. So it gives you more time to process lifting one leg, lifting two legs, putting your legs together, being able to visually plan jumping over something. So the water just I'm sure you can tell by now, I am a huge proponent for the water for all things swimming, but also all things recreation, gross motor based, developmentally based as well. So this is just an example of teaching swim safety skills, communication and body awareness through an activity. And I'm going to leave the video or the sound on so you can just kind of hear what we're doing in this pool. So this is one of our beginning swimmers just working on joint attention to start before he jumps in, and then working to then grasp onto the side. He's going under the water. He's coming back above the water. He's grabbing onto the side each time. He's not just going under and staying there, which is when we first started what he was doing. And then we've been working on this. This is probably 6 or 7 weeks in, walking his hands along the side to then a safe space. And then at the end, I'm asking for a high five and he signs more independently, which is something from a communication standpoint we had been working on for a really long time, expressing what his needs and wants were. And that was one of his first moments, independently signing more and asking for what he wanted. And, in that video too, he's aware of where his body's at in space. He was aware that he was by the wall and that he could go under and pop back up and grab onto the side. So using those, swimming opportunities to really teach a variety of skills that not only are going to keep him safe in the water, but also transfer onto land as well. And this is kind of opposite of what we've been talking about, from the individuals that really love the water to individuals that don't always love the water. We do see a lot of people that come to us that, the water is a difficult place. Taking showers are difficult. Baths are difficult. Tolerating the feeling of water can be a challenge. So working in slow steps to kind of progress and introduce new sensory experiences. A lot of times if we are at the pool and the individual, is not really wanting to get in, we will bring water out of the pool, either in buckets, or we have a big step that we utilize that we'll bring on the side and just start playing with the water in a controlled environment, and then working our way towards the pool steps, and then down the pool steps, and then in the water. This example is just of tolerating goggles. Equipment can be another one that, not everybody enjoys putting on a noodle belt or a flotation device. So, starting small, we took the straps off of the goggles. And so we just are putting them on with just looking through them into a mirror. So on the pool wall, there's a mirror right there. And then, working to alleviate fear and anxiety starts with building trust, and meeting individuals where they're at. So the individual that's in the pool, he was one of our swimmers who did not want to get in to start. So we did a lot on the side, and now he's swimming in the water, face in the water. And it kind of started with this process, playing on the side, riding on some of the different flotation devices like that shark that we had in the pool earlier, pouring water over different body parts, pouring water on me, and then eventually submerging and involving play. We started with him doing puzzles underwater. He was very into puzzles and motivated by puzzle pieces. So I would put them underwater and he would go under and get one and then bring it back up to put it on the side. And now he's diving off the blocks and swimming in the deep end, and an independent swimmer for the summer to come. And this is just another example of just, a byproduct of swimming and of aquatic therapy and being successful in the water. If it is with swimming skills, or if it's with skills that may be difficult on land that you're getting success in the water with, if it's jumping, if it's gait training, if it's using your arms to cross midline, maybe hitting a ball using eye-hand coordination. It can build confidence and boost self-esteem.
One.
How excited he was for himself, how excited his therapist was for him. And that was his first time jumping in the pool by himself without anybody assisting him. That type of stuff. I mean, it happens on land too. Don't get me wrong. It is not a pool only thing. But I feel like the success in the water, there's just so many things that are already working towards your advantage when you're working in the water, to build that confidence and to build that skill development that on land at times can be difficult. And so just to kind of wrap everything up, the impact on lifelong health and wellness from an aquatic therapy program and swimming program is just that it can increase strength and range of motion, which then transfer to ADLs and life skills. Using those opportunities in the water, if it's backstroke, if it's freestyle, if you're talking about swimming progression, that range of motion is starting in the development of those skills. You can increase physical activity, so promoting healthy and active lifestyle. Beginning with aquatic therapy, we're doing a lot of those, let's kick a soccer ball that's underwater. Let's hit a ball that's on the top of the water. Let's submerge different items. Let's play tag in the water. Let's use a squirt gun in the water. There's so many fun, enjoyable things that you can introduce in the water that then can be transferred to land as well. And then it also promotes a healthy and active lifestyle. Once you then progress individuals to start swimming, that's a lifelong skill you can do all of your life. I mean, when I'm in the pool, there are people who are, 2 years old swimming with us, and there's people who are in their 80s and 90s still swimming laps. So it's a lifelong thing. It also helps decrease the likelihood of drowning. So, getting involved at a young age can help save lives and provide the necessary safety skills that individuals with autism and any individuals need to be safe around the water. It also can help decrease obesity in a sedentary lifestyle. A lot of times individuals with autism are not involved, like I said, in those sports and the group sports and the team sports. They may not be going to the gym on their own and looking to work out and increase their physical, fitness. So finding something that they're interested in, again, it doesn't have to be swimming, but a lot of times it can be swimming, that then can turn into going multiple times a week, and increase life expectancy and decrease the lifelong medical conditions that could come along from a sedentary lifestyle. And then lastly, it just provides an opportunity for social activities, community outings with family, with friends, or even on an individual basis. If it's something, individually that you want to do and go swimming, we all have the choice to do that. And at Rec2Connct and my mission, just in general, I want to help individuals find what makes them happy and what they want to do to continue to be active. And swimming can be one of those things. So, and just keep on swimming. It comes from Finding Nemo. That was a great piece of advice that we follow along with as well. So this is just more information. If you want to contact me, feel free. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Or discuss this any further. And then we have our references listed here from in the presentation. And then I'm going to flip back over to some of our questions real quick. So I'll read these out loud and then kind of try to answer them as well. First one I have, it says, how do you recommend families making the most of community recreation programs facilities if aquatic therapy is not an option in their region? Are there ways you recommend so people with autism and their caregivers can advocate for inclusivity? Places like public swim lessons? That's a great question. So actually we are working on that right now where, we have a waiting list at Rec2Connct and it's hard for us to keep up with the demand in our area, but we have many rec centers and, YMCA programs and variety of private programs that want to be able to provide swim lessons to individuals with autism. And so what we are exploring doing is starting to provide an inclusion specialist at those facilities that can help train their swim instructors, because a lot of times they're high school students, or college students that are their lifeguards or WSI that just don't have the training and are well equipped to do this in a specialized way. So potentially in your area, maybe finding a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, or even a school like a college that may provide therapeutic programming that would be willing to maybe come out and help train individuals at your rec center on small things that they can do. I mean, a lot of times it's making small adjustments. It might be just having a visual schedule there. Maybe they need a one-on-one assistance. And that is a reasonable accommodation to ask the rec center to make under ADA. So that's something that you could look into as well is, can you have that discussion with your rec center to ask them to provide a one-on-one assistant, or if you find the one-on-one assistant, for them to pay for that and for them to be a part of that. It should be something that this is accessible to everybody. And like you said, a barrier to this is that these programs aren't available in all areas, even in our area, even in Cleveland, Ohio. It is something that we are really one of the only ones that are doing this. And the need is so high that we can't keep up. So we're starting to explore kind of what other options we can do as well. Thank you for that question. Another one is I'm applying for a YMCA membership with my son with ASD in order to access the pool recreationally. What are some activities and exercises that I can do with my 3-year-old in the pool until we can access adapted swim lessons? That's another great question. So anything that you can do to work on using upper extremities and lower extremities at the same time is a great way to start with that. Like I said, if you think about swimming, it really involves everything. It's a complex movement, utilizing your arms, your legs, and your breathing and your core, and to have the strength to do all of that. And motor plan on top of all of that. So if you're doing any kind of jumping jacks in the pool, if you're having them go under and just grab items off the bottom and push off the bottom to come back up, holding a ball while they're bouncing around in the pool is using their arms and legs at the same time. A lot of times that's where we start. And then from a safety perspective, I think some of the biggest things that we start with are that joint attention at the beginning. So before they enter the water, making sure that you and your child either are counting together or you are counting and not letting them jump in until you say 1, 2, 3, go, or ready, set, go, or whatever your cues are to enter the water, that is something you do together. And then once they jump in, turning right around and going back to the side. That's a huge safety skill, is if somebody jumps in, do they know how to get back to safety, or can they flip on their back to start floating on their back? Floating on their back is that would be another beginner skill that I would start with as well. And then also, just starting some of those kicking. Here's what kicking is on land. Here's what kicking is in the water, to start to propel themselves forward. I'm sorry, one more that I just thought of. I know I said last one, but also grabbing onto the side. And then as you saw in that one video, walking their hands to safety. So walking their hands either to where they can touch, or walking their hands to the steps or a ladder or somewhere that is safe, so that they could then exit the pool as well. Okay, next one. What pool accessories or tools would you recommend having to help while accessing? I'm sorry, it just scrolled down. Okay. What pool accessories or tools would you recommend having to help while accessing a recreational pool? So I think each pool is different. Some pools don't allow for flotation devices. I also am hesitant about recommending any kind of flotation devices, because it does promote a false sense of security for the swimmer that they can swim. So I know that there's been a lot of information out lately about the use of puddle jumpers and things like that, because kids then feel that they can swim. And then a lot of times when kids are then jumping in the pool without one, they are doing it thinking that they can swim, and they have that false sense of security. So I really don't necessarily recommend, other than a life jacket, like a certified life vest, other sort of flotation devices. But if you're trying to teach some, beginning swimming, and even just beginning like upper body strengthening and use of your arms and legs at the same time, core strengthening, anything that you can submerge, if it's a barbell, if it's a kickboard. Barbells are usually our first step in teaching kicking. And then as they get more proficient, we would then incorporate a kickboard into that. So I think, one of those long barbells, they have like 2 floats on the end and then a bar in the middle. That's one that we utilize a lot and can be utilized for many things. You can use it to cross midline and sway back and forth in the water. You can use it to submerge. You can use it to kick. You can put your arms over top of it and work on kicking. You can hold it and work on kicking to get more core involvement. You can also, lift it up and down. You can splash it in the water. There's a lot of opportunities with that. Goggles is another good one, starting kids to wear goggles, even if it's in the bathtub, that's a great tool to use. Dive toys, encouraging individuals to go underwater by going underwater to get something. We use a lot that light up. So it's not only just, under the water, but it's also lighting up as well to call attention to it. Mats are another great one. You saw the videos of individuals, jumping up and down and splashing and bouncing on the mat. So that's a great one as well that we utilize. Will we open up any locations nationally? Thank you for that question. That is definitely of interest to us and something that we have looked into. We are expanding throughout the Cleveland and Northeast Ohio area. And I think, as we go forward, our biggest struggle a lot of times is finding people qualified to do this in our own area. So, starting it somewhere else would I'm sure have that same challenge. Not that we're not open to that and haven't thought about that, but definitely if you have, any suggestions in mind, feel free to reach out to me if there's a location you're thinking of. Next question was how to get a teacher training in your method. You live in Sonoma County in California. Feel free to reach out to me. My information was on the last slide, and I included my information there. So that is something that I would be happy to, have discussions with and work with training. I know that there are some other national organizations that train nationally. There's another one called Swim Angelfish. They're out of the East Coast and they do a great job. They do offer online training already. That's not something Rec2Connct has currently, hopefully in the future, but not something that we have already. But Swim Angelfish does. They will come out to you. They will help train your instructors so they can come to like a local YMCA or a local rec center, and train the staff there. Or if there is, an aquatic therapy organization or an individual, they could also go online and get training and attend some of their conferences that they're at too.
Jen, could you go back to your last slide and put that up so people can see that information? That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. All right. I think I have time for a couple more. What is the method for a 28-year-old man who is high functioning? Sorry, it keeps jumping down. High functioning and has experience with other sports like karate, aikido, and I'm not sure how to pronounce the next one, and basketball. How to improve executive functioning, how to improve his awareness of his body. One recommendation that I would have, this is just because this discussion is about aquatics, but getting in the water, there's a technique called I Chi that is an aquatic therapy technique that does assist with body awareness and following commands and following directions in the water. There's also another one called unpredictable command technique that also is another great one in the water that's an aquatic therapy technique that can be utilized. So those would be the two offhand that I would suggest from an aquatic standpoint. How would you recommend encouraging a 3-year-old nonverbal to not drink the water? That's a great question. We get that all the time. So a couple different techniques that we use. One is we try to have a water bottle on the side of the pool. So every time that it's happening, we say we don't drink pool water. We drink, if you need a drink, we have water over here. Or we drink the water in the water bottle. And so then trying to use that as a replacement behavior. It's hard because, being in the pool, it is accessible. It's there. It's there all the time. So stopping drinking that is a tough one. Another one is utilizing a chew. Like if the individual uses like some of those plastic sensory chews that are on land, those can be brought into the water as well. So it's still providing them with that oral motor sensation and stimulation that they're craving, but it's discouraging them from doing it with the water and instead using a chew as opposed to that. Another thing that we do is we also use a replacement behavior to blow bubbles. So every time that's happening, we blow bubbles, we don't drink the water. And then I blow bubbles, they blow bubbles. We also use flutes in the water or like musical instruments to promote blowing bubbles. That can be a tough one, just blowing bubbles in general and not drinking the water because that is, obviously something that that is there all the time and it's a high sensory need. So those are just a couple offhand that I can think of. Next one was, can you put the name of the ear guard in the chat? Yes, I can. It is called the Ear Bandit. And I can even send over, if I can find a link, I won't be able to find it now, but I can also send over a link as well that could be added maybe later. Can a child benefit from swimming instead of aquatic therapy? Absolutely. I mean, I think any opportunity to be in the water and to be safe in the water is going to be beneficial. You know, starting to teach those sensory and basic swim safety skills is imperative for anybody. So even if you don't have access to aquatic therapy in, you know, the way that we have found that works for the individuals that we're servicing, I think just being in the water and starting to work on those swim skills is extremely beneficial for any child with autism. I think the biggest challenge that we found, and what a lot of people seem to come to us for, is that they've tried other programs and things like that. And it can be difficult in a group setting for the individuals that are teaching to understand the needs of individuals with autism, and then also be able to focus on those individual needs in a group setting. But I do think it's beneficial just in any way to start that introduction of swimming at any age. What are some goals to have when using a recreational pool? As I said, I think swim safety is top priority. I think being able to engage the core. So again, submerging any sort of item is going to get that going. And then using arms and legs at the same time. Can such approach help with anxiety in adults with autism? We have found that to be the case for sure. The opportunity to be in the water and to be successful in the water. I'm not sure if this question is in relation to anxiety around the pool, like not wanting to be in water, or just anxiety in general. But I would say anxiety in general, it is something that the water is such a calming place. That being in the water, being able to move in the water is definitely something that is helpful. So anxiety in general. Okay, thank you, Mira. I think it is a calming place. Being able to float. I know there's a lot of float centers around just for anybody to be able to engage in, where, it's a saltwater pool. Everything is quiet. You're in your own environment. Sometimes they have different pods where you're just floating by yourself. And that is huge for people that have anxiety and that need. I love doing it. Being able to just put my ears in the water and not hear anything else is a very relaxing, calming thing to be able to clear my mind and to kind of help calm myself. And so we found the same definitely with adults with autism, kids with autism as well, that swimming has just become their place. That is their place that they go to decompress. That's why I think a lot of people in our programs, they don't leave. We have individuals that started with us at a very young age and are still with us into their adulthood because they want to come and continue swimming either in our one-on-one programs or with our swim team or in our group programs. I think it just kind of, there's many opportunities that can help assist with anxiety and the ability to, especially from a sensory standpoint too, to be able to provide that sensory feedback. How do you address the chemicals inside the swimming pool, meaning fluoride or chlorine or other chemicals? For autistic kids and adults, they can be very toxic. Do you find any info where we can find a swimming pool in the Bay Area that's designed with ozone or oxygen and no chemicals? I know that the saltwater pools have been great. California does seem to be advanced as far as their aquatic therapy opportunities. So I think that would be a great, I think you would probably have more access to that than we do in Ohio, unfortunately, unfortunately for you. So I think if you Google that, you'd probably be able to find some places that did not use chlorine, did not use bromine, and some of the other things that are used. Pediatrician from Egypt, do we have any online training? Like I said, not yet. It sounds like that should be in our works, though, based on all the questions about it. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we'll keep you posted as we go further in that. All right, let's see. You mentioned grants for aquatic therapy. Our adult son has aquatic therapy in a therapy tank. With a chiropractor, it's expensive. Are there any grants that could help manage the cost? His county waiver will not cover the expense. Offhand, I don't know any from a national standpoint, but I know that if you look locally, a lot of times you can find places that do offer grants for therapies that are not covered by insurance, and or equipment not covered by insurance. In Ohio, I know that we do have a few local organizations that are specific for either individuals with autism or individuals with any disability. And so that's kind of where we have a list that we provide families that are local. So you may want to check locally to see if there's any grant opportunities. Let's see if I missed any other ones. Underwater speakers and communicate with kids while they're underwater, or pipe in music underwater. We have not so far. I love that idea though. There's a place, as I was talking about floating, there's a place in Chicago that I go that does have speakers underwater that play, and it is like the most calming environment that I've ever been in. So we don't utilize that currently, but that is a great idea. And I do know that we have some other there. It seems like they do more like competitive swimming. They do have like the headsets that the swimmer wears, as well as the coach on deck, and they're able to communicate with their swimmer. So that is something that's out there. We have not used that as of yet. Our local YMCA requires us to have a parent in the water. My son's 11 and has moderate skills for independent swimming. When we requested a one-on-one support instead of us, they told us they did not have enough staff. I mean, unfortunately, I feel like that is a common response. If you wanted to push their hand, that was something under ADA that would be a reasonable accommodation. And it may even help if you had someone in mind, like if you knew someone from the county or one of those teachers, or, somebody that already would be willing to do it. And then you just say, hey, I have the staff, but you would just need to pay for it. And asking the rec center to pay for it, that could be the way to go as well. Sometimes citing ADA, sometimes citing reasonable accommodations will have rec centers, kind of tune their ears to what you're saying and be able to provide that. It doesn't work all the time, and sometimes then can be a lengthy fight. But it is something that, I wish that more rec centers would be able to do, because that is a barrier to access. If your child needs one-on-one support and supervision, then, that is what they need to access this program. And then if you can't provide that, then that's denying them access. I could go on about that one, but I'll refrain for now, but I'm happy to, provide some sources if needed too. Some of my consumers had experienced extreme fear of the water. Do you have any program for coping or dealing with fear of the water and desensitization? I'm sorry, my mouth is starting to stop working. A lot of what, like I said, we do a lot on the side of the pool, bringing water out of the pool to them, finding what they like. So if an individual loves puzzles, maybe they like SpongeBob, maybe they like, splashes, maybe they like, finding out what their interest is, even on land, maybe like cars, maybe they enjoy Barbies, whatever it may be, finding that and trying to find a way to incorporate that into the water, to kind of motivate them to take a next step further. At Rec2Connct, we don't believe in, dunking kids underwater when they're not ready. We don't force kids into the water when they're not ready. We really try to work on where they're at and building that trust and building that opportunity for connection between us. It's in our name, Rec2Connect. It is Rec2Connect because I believe connection is the number one thing that is needed in aquatic therapy, in recreation therapy, in the services that we provide to people with disabilities. So, if we don't have that connection, if you can't trust me, then, that me trying to teach you all the other things and try to entice you to go underwater when you're not ready is not going to happen as likely. So, it may be a slow process, but I think finding ways that you can find what they enjoy and then putting yourself into what they're into, and then eventually, before you know it, they're in the water with you and swimming. Is aquatic therapy only for individuals that like water? Definitely not. Like I said, it's something you can work towards and work on. All right, I will try to answer two more. I'm a mother of an 8-year-old autistic boy from India. My son likes the water, but not yet learned to swim. This is the first time I'm hearing about aquatic therapy. We don't have any aquatic therapy near our place. How can I help him use his love for the water? He does have sensory and behavioral issues. So, I mean, I think if you find individuals maybe that are teaching swimming and then trying to give them, some more information about your son specifically to help him be successful and them be successful in the water could be a good start. Also, if, you're finding that he loves the water and wants to be in the water, starting just getting in the water and teaching some basic safety skills. But then starting to incorporate some of those strength skills and some of those motor planning skills into it as well through game and through fun can be a great way to do that as well. All right. Can I start my 10-year-old girl with autism to start swimming now? She hasn't done swimming before. Absolutely. You are never too old to learn to swim. Never, ever, ever. We have in the pool that I swim at, there's an 86-year-old woman who does not have autism. She does not have disabilities, but she just learned how to swim. So you are never too old to learn how to swim. That skill is important always. It can be taught at any age. It may take more time as individuals are older because they may have built up a fear or anxiety or, have more needs as they age, but it is never too late to learn how to swim and never too late to start aquatic therapy in the water either. All right, last one. My son loves the water and the pool is a passion, but he does not like his face to be splashed since he was little. Therefore, he does not like to put his face in the water. Any advice on how I can help him to improve? Yes, you can definitely start small. Start with just pouring water over our arms is a lot of times how we start, with kind of working to get to water on the face and being okay with that. Also wearing goggles, not the ones that have the nose on it, but ones that have, the eyes to it. They have ones that are wider frame too, if that might be something that is a challenge for individuals to wear the real small ones. We found a lot of success with larger ones. I'll add into the chat too another pair of goggles. They are called Froggles that have been great that we utilize. Those ones, they have, instead of, the band around the back that's like elastic, it gets caught in your hair. It's very uncomfortable and tight. It's a neoprene band with Velcro on it. So it is designed to be comfortable and to be easy to wear. So those have been really successful. But starting to wear goggles would be great. Pouring water over different extremity body parts, not the face to start with is another great one. Using like colanders that you would use for draining spaghetti and things like that in the water, pouring a cup of water into the colander, and a lot of times then the water is coming out in all different ways. So it's a little bit unpredictable. But, maybe starting to do it out in front first so they can watch it happen, then doing it above a little bit, so they can see the water and may start to get splashing. But I think just taking small steps, with any of this is the way to go. It doesn't have to be all out swimming, going underwater right off the bat. It may be a long time before individuals put their face in. We have some swimmers that have never put their face in, but they still swim USA swim meets. They still were able to figure out a way, and we were able to figure out a way for them to be successful in the water to swim without putting their face in the water, because that's just not something that they're comfortable with. And we're still working on it. We still will continue to try, but for some individuals, that's just something that is very difficult and overwhelming for them. So we want to respect that too, and work, just like I said, a little bit at a time to get them a little bit further and further in the water. Maybe it's just to hear, then eventually it's their mouth, then maybe it's their nose, then eventually maybe their head. So I think working with your swimmer where they're at, working with individuals where they are, providing those therapeutic goals that you're working on, other skills that are also related to swimming are helpful. And then just remember safety is the key in that too. So whatever you're doing in the water, do it with safety in mind. If it's, like I said, grabbing the side of the pool and teaching that as your first skill, flipping to your back and teaching that as the first skill. I meant to have a video in here of how we work on that flipping belly to back. I don't think I included that, but you can Google that too. Flipping over from your belly to your back is a great safety skill to learn too.